will be part of my first 100 days as Prime Minister, where I'm going to eliminate the ideological anti-energy, anti-resource policies of the Trudeau government, Bill C-69, the tanker ban. I'm going to introduce a National Strategic Pipelines Act to get our Canadian resource to either tidewater or refinement capacity by cabinet approval up front. And as part of that, we're going to eliminate the Trudeau carbon tax and show Canadians that the Ottawa knows best approach for climate change or any issue is wrong. We need to respect provincial jurisdiction when it comes to the economy and decisions. And wherever we can partner with them on emission reduction, we will. But a tax plan is just that. It's a tax grab, and we'll eliminate it.
Yeah, that is right at the top of the list, and something that we can do immediately. At the provincial level, as you know, some provinces have moved forward. Others are challenging it. So those who are challenging will know that they have a friend in a Conservative government and a Conservative Prime Minister that will scrap the tax. As you know, it does nothing for the environment. It causes Canadians' day-to-day lives to become more expensive, whether they're dropping their kids off at hockey or soccer or going to get the groceries. And it punishes our manufacturing sector, and it's unfair everywhere, especially in rural Canada where you can't take transit to work. You don't have the same, perhaps, options that you might have in a bigger city. So I will scrap it, and I will not replace it with a national pricing and regulatory regime. It's a tax that has to go. It's just a tax, and I would get rid of it, and I mean it.
We're going to get rid of the carbon tax right away. I'm the only candidate that wants to get us out of the Paris Agreement, which sort of provides the pressure, the ideological foundation for these types of taxes. These taxes don't help us. They don't help us. They don't help global emissions by any stretch, and they certainly don't help Canada. So out of the Paris Agreement and no carbon tax.
Well, to be honest with you, it's something that is in my platform, so I think it's very important to abolish it pretty soon in my reign as the leader. And I believe that it's very important for us to also assess what the situation is and to let the public know what the cost impact will be and what other things that we might have to juggle around in order to deal with this, because we're going to have to find efficiencies in other areas. I think that the government has expanded their spending to account for this carbon tax, even though it was supposed to be aimed at really having sustainable practices and in invoking environmental stewardship. And I don't think that that's what it's done. Unfortunately, the majority of people who are suffering from this are low-income individuals and also farmers. They've seen their entire profits eaten up by this carbon tax. And so it's something that has to be dealt with very expeditiously. And we also have to have a costed impact assessment as to what other areas are going to be affected so that the public knows. And I think that's part of the problem that we've had a government who hasn't done impact assessments on certain legislations and other initiatives.
Dr. Lewis, over to you for 30 seconds, please.
My plan is to develop our natural resources in an environmentally sustainable manner, and I have 4 policies to do that. The first is to incentivize corporations, then to bring in balanced regulation, and also to clean up the orphan wells, and also to adopt a national environmental policy. My policy is to make sure that all Canadians have clean air, clean water, and live on uncontaminated soil.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Mr. O'Toole.
This is a great question. We have to have the right balance. Let me be clear. I will kill the carbon tax, get pipelines built, and win the next election with a real environmental plan. These are 3 things that Mr. McKay cannot do. Justin Trudeau is making us less competitive, and he's dictating an Ottawa knows best approach to the provinces. What Premier Kenney or Premier Ford is doing to lower emissions, we should respect and support. My Our Country plan has a Rebuild Canada section that will get us back on track and help the environment.
Thank you, Mr. O'Toole. The floor is now open for 2 minutes. Dr. Lewis, if you'd begin.
My policy incentivizes companies to develop innovative technologies, and these technologies will uplift our environment and our economy simultaneously. I will make sure that we develop our economy and our environment without foreign interference. We will stimulate corporations by having them invest in innovative technologies, which means bringing in tax credits. We will sell our liquefied natural gas abroad to bring down emissions in places like China, who's still dependent upon coal. We will reduce regulation and create simplified procedures.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Thank you. I'm going to move over to
Eliminate the
Mr.
carbon
O'Toole.
tax.
We'll come back to you for last 10.
And I agree entirely with Dr. Lewis. There's a number of amazing Canadian technologies we can use. Nuclear power, carbon capture and sequestration. Our LNG can shift coal emissions overseas. So I support that. There are 70,000 jobs in nuclear alone. I've been a supporter of that since I was first elected. I also have proposed a Strategic National Pipelines Act that will make Cabinet the decision maker so that projects can get going. Justin Trudeau has taken an ideological approach. He killed Energy East. He killed Northern Gateway, a pipeline 1/3 owned by Indigenous Canadians, and then he had to buy the remaining pipeline. We need to make it a cabinet decision, and a prime minister, I will show the country that pipelines are in the national interest from Newfoundland and Labrador to British Columbia.
Thank you, Mr. O'Toole. Dr. Lewis?
I will make sure that we have enabling legislation. We have had legislation that has targeted provinces like Alberta. Bill C-68, Bill C-48, and Bill C-69 has eliminated our oil and gas sector.
That's an excellent question. I have a plan for the environment. Canada is not the problem, but Canada can be the solution. We have to focus on new technologies, and we are very good at that. We will be investing in them. We need to export our liquefied natural gas to countries that are still using coal. That is an excellent vision, to have our LNG exports, which are very clean and highly competitive. So I want to create a national economic corridor to export our natural resources. I'm working with all the provinces to achieve that. Unfortunately, now we have a prime minister that is against the development of our natural resources. I'm going to focus on our potential for natural resources, which will help rebuild our economy. I'm going to create jobs with that, and we will be able to export both our natural gas and our hydroelectricity. Premier Legault was looking for a way to work with all other premiers and the Prime Minister to find a national solution. That is an excellent vision. An economic corridor across the country to help the prosperity of our country without taxing provinces, without regulatory barriers, the kinds of barriers that Prime Minister Trudeau keeps throwing up. An economic corridor is key to rebuilding our economy and to working with a broader vision, like a consensus within the country. This is a vision that will work for the economy. Thank you. Mr. Sloan, you have 2 minutes. Canadians have a choice. If they want to protect the environment, they can work for climate realism, the way I suggest, or they can vote for a more alarmist climate vision. I am the only candidate that is ready to take us out of the very unrealistic Paris Agreement, which has already been used as an excuse to force the carbon tax on the provinces. Without the Paris Agreement, Canada would be able to play a more important role on the world stage and become a steward of our environment while helping our economy. I would eliminate the carbon tax, which has no effective impact on reducing pollution. I would make sure that infrastructures were properly funded so that wastewater would no longer be discharged into our waterways. I would promote green technology to reduce emissions, and I would support local purchasing for tax relief so that communities would be better served. I would also set goals to reduce waste, provide for biodegradable packaging while continuing to develop natural resources and pipeline. Provinces should have full authority as provided for in the Constitution. That includes an absolute right to decide on energy projects within their borders. Thank you, Mr. Sloan. Ms. Lewis, you have 2 minutes. We need a long-term plan to eliminate the deficit progressively. I have plans for tangible policies that would reduce red tape and provide incentives that would make it possible for small business to prosper. This would move Canada forward, creating jobs and a self-sufficient economy. We need to protect and support our major industries so that Canada can be much more self-sufficient in a crisis. We need a long-term plan to progressively eliminate our deficit. I can propose tangible economic policies to reduce red tape and deliver major incentives that would make it possible for small business to advance, to progress. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lewis. 5 minutes. The debate is open to everyone. No. Apologies, Mr. O'Toole. Thank you, Mr. Nolan. We need a balance between economic development and the environment. It is very important to me, to my family, and to everyone's children. I have a balanced plan. I will abolish the carbon tax and support innovative projects in the regions. I will reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It is very important to have a balanced approach of that kind. Unfortunately, Mr. McKay attacked me on my environmental platform and on my Quebec platform as well. I will respect provincial areas of jurisdiction when it comes to the environment and work very closely with the provinces, Mr. McKay. I will work with Premier Legault. I will work with Premier Kenney. It is a matter of respect, Mr. McKay. I worked as a lawyer in the private sector on environmental issues. I have a record on the environment, both as a lawyer and as a member of Parliament. We need to have a serious environmental platform for the next election. And as leader of the Conservative Party, I will have exactly that, a balanced approach that supports major energy projects in the West and in Quebec, and at the same time, because this is very important, I will have a real plan, not just a few words like Mr. McKay throws out. My plan is on my website, erinO'Toole.ca, and I would like to have your support for my Quebec platform.